You are a business owner, entrepreneur, sales professional in a company, in your own business, but no matter where you are and who you're working for, whether it's someone else or yourself, you have one question. Brandon, how can I consistently get fully booked with my business so that I can share my message, so that I can influence those that I want to influence, and maybe most importantly, make a difference in the world while creating a consistent and stable income for yourself? I know, and our guest knows, that one of the main struggles a lot of people when they're running their own business, as well as when they're on a sales team fending for themselves, is it can be quite difficult to have that stable income. Some months you might bring in 5 grand. Some months you might bring in 10. Some months you might bring in 20. Right? It's this inconsistency that creates this uncertainty, which can result in a lack of confidence for you and for what you do. But what if that inconsistency and uncertainty didn't have to be there? What if you could consistently be fully booked with your business, no matter what business you are in, and no matter what fully booked means to you? That's what we're talking about today with our guest, Michelle DeNio. But before I introduce Michelle to you, you know the fee for the show. We're not going to interrupt your experience with ads. We're not going to show you sponsors because they are annoying, and we're not going to interrupt this experience for you. Okay, so all that we ask is that you share this show with just one other person, only if you take something away. Only if you take away a strategy, an insight, a philosophy that helps you to get fully booked, enroll even one more client, or maybe we may just smile. Whatever it might be, share the show with just one other person. So without further ado, let's talk to my friend, Michelle DeNio. And for those who don't know Michelle is your business GPS. She is an expert business strategist and a coach who helps online service providers navigate their most efficient and profitable route. Very important, route, ROUTE, to becoming fully booked. I think Michelle and I were introduced months ago, back, I think, right when summer began. It was either by Christine Smith, who's been on the show, or Nick McGraw. Maybe not Nick. I think we both know Nick. You even have a show with Nick, but I think that one of us introduced us, but I'm not sure who it was, but I'm glad it happened. And
probably Christine.
Probably Christine. Yeah, she is the networking Jedi. But regardless, it's great to finally have you on the show, Michelle.
It's so great to be here. I'm so happy that we finally had a chance to actually connect. And I know we've had to reschedule it a couple times. And so, but here we are. We're here. It doesn't matter.
It's here, and we're gonna get into it. So when you talk about the route to fully booked, you say, and I read this somewhere, something that you posted, that fully booked means something different to every single person. And I'm assuming that when you're working with someone, the first thing you have to define is, what does fully booked even look like for you? Like, what does fully booked look like for the different kinds of people that you work with?
Yeah, I think the thing is, for me with fully booked, and why I always come back to what fully booked is because everybody's capacity is different and everybody's definition of success is different. And so those two things really define how you're going to get fully booked, right? Like, some people are full-time. Some people will work 40, 50 hours. Other people only have a capacity to work 10, 15 hours a week, or based on how much time they're spending with their clients, they can only take on 1 or 2 clients a week. I mean, truly everybody's business model looks different. So it's not like you can say, when you have 10 clients, every single person's fully booked. I don't have the capacity to take on 10 at a time. I can't possibly do it. It's not physically possible for me. So I can't say that that's like a defining fully booked. And so that's where I always look at those differentiators to say, like, what is your definition of success? Because we get to define that. And what is your capacity to even, and then we work and make sure they're both in alignment. And to me, that's where fully booked comes into play.
Totally. And I'm sure that definition changes once a person moves from being a solopreneur and then brings on a team of people and moves on from there. But I spoke recently with one of our past guests on the show, and I can't think of their name right now, but they said that they didn't ever want a team. Like, they wanted to build their lifestyle as a solopreneur so that they didn't have to answer to people. They didn't have to direct and lead a team of 15 or 20 people. Like, they just wanted to have a consistent income that worked for them, that allowed them to do the things that they wanted to do. But whether you're someone listening that wants a team of 15 to 20 people. You want to be earning millions every single year. You have a mission that you want to spread out internationally, globally, or maybe you just want to be earning $8,000 to $10,000 a month and you want to be able to live wherever you want, do the things you want to do. Like, it means something different for everyone.
Yeah, it's flexibility. It could be time. It could be money. It could be impact. It could be a lot of things. And I think, I have a lot of clients that have no desire to have a team either. They just want to do their thing, live their life, and that's why they became a business owner, was so that they had that flexibility, so they didn't have to report to anybody. And so I think it's really, really important to think about that. And a lot of people, I don't think, spend enough time even looking at, what does fully booked look like for me? How would I define that? Most people really don't take the time to even reflect on that. They're always just shooting for some arbitrary goal, or it's for example, I had a client the other day say to me that one of his goals was to be able to take the summers off and just kind of travel and be with the kids and do things while the kids were off from school. And my answer to him was, that's great. That's a great goal. But like, what does that look like? Does it mean that you make enough money the first 5 months of the year so that you can take 2 months off with zero work? Does it mean that you create something more passive where it just sells and you continue to, during those 2 months, you still have revenue coming in through something more passive? Does it mean that you're working virtually and that you just move everything from in-person to online? Like, that's what you have to think about, is what does that look like? Really, so it's one thing to have a goal and to have these big visions and to have these dreams, but how and what are the options? And there's a lot of different options. And that's where I say, like, fully booked could look totally different. All three of those options could define fully booked for him.
Yeah, totally. So what does fully booked look like for Michelle?
Fully booked for me is shifting. And I think that's another key point too, is that as your business grows, your definition of fully booked is going to continue to shift. I'm shifting a little bit more and leaning far more into my mastermind community and networking community. And that's what I really want to put my time and energy into. So fully booked for me now looks like 4 new clients, maybe like at a time. And they're usually on an 8-week span. So 2 or like no more than 4 in that 8-week period at a time. And then on retainer, about 10, because my retainer option is far less. And that was a shift that I made, is I wanted to be able to keep more clients on retainer, to be able to support more of them. So I had to shift my packaging to really be able to accommodate that. And so again, I think as your business grows, you have to continue to look at what are the shifts that need to be made.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. And like at the beginning, I had no idea what I wanted my business to even really be structured as. I started with a course, which totally flopped because it was a $47 course. And I realized moving into it, I was like, of course, after it was finished, I was like, I've got to sell like a lot of these in order to create the monthly income that I want. And I haven't really even built an audience that allows for that. So I then was like, okay, well, I want to work with companies. So I would do a one-off talk here and there. I would, earn 3,000 from a talk, 4,000 from a talk. And I'd get, maybe a couple talks every single month. And it was a constant hunt for a client. And I got to a point where I realized this doesn't really support the lifestyle that I want. Like, the income is there. That's great. But I'm doing the talk, I'm preparing for the talk, I'm getting the client. Like, it was a constant rat race of going through the cycle.
Yep.
Exactly. And, I got pretty good at that because I had to from necessity. But then I realized, well, what could I do that better supports my lifestyle? And it was bigger services, bigger packages, like rather than doing a one talk with a company and then they're like, okay, great, that was awesome, thank you very much, we'll bring you back in like 2 years. I was like, what if I had a 6-figure offer? And even if I worked for 3 months to sell a 6-figure offer, like, boom, you get a couple of those each year, and that supports the lifestyle that I want to live. So it takes time to really discover what that looks like. But I think that question you asked of what do I want my life and my lifestyle to look like, super powerful questions to have a plan like that.
Yeah. And to be constantly looking at that, right? Like I said, because if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, it's totally different than it is now. You know what I mean? Now I'm leaning into, because same thing, when you're in the client, the one-to-one, it's that constant client acquisition. there's only so far you can take that, and I personally don't enjoy being in client acquisition mode. So
Yes.
I'm always looking at how can I keep the people I already have, because I don't want to have to be in, like you said, the rat race of just where's the next client, where's the next client, where's the next client. So I look at retainer options or reoccurring revenue, and I really try to get everybody to a place. And again, business model is different, but I am a big firm believer in having some level of reoccurring revenue that is a stability, because at least you know exactly what revenue is coming in, how many hours it's going to take you, like what's your capacity. Like you said, a 6-figure offer, if you've got that for 3 months, how much time you have to spend on that, where you're expending all of your time, energy, and resources, right? And so you can plan around that. Like, can I take on can I sell my course in between, because you have this. So it's like looking at what is your base offer that's going to continue to bring in that stability, and then you can bring in all of these other offers or different things and looking at what that looks like. But you have to have some level of stability before you can grow, because if you don't, you're constantly in that up and down fluctuation. And that is a really, really tough place to grow from, when you can't rely on any level of income. It's like, great, made 10K last month, you made 20K last month, but now you haven't made any money for the next 6 months. That's fine, but you've got to have a business model that supports that.
Yeah, it's a lot too. Like, no denying. Like, I remember I officially started my business in 2019, and I heard people say you need to post online every single day. You need to have the logo. You need to have the content. And like, even when I spoke with Nick McGraw, I was like, hey, Nick, when the people come to you and they just start their business and they want to get a logo made, like, what do you say to those people? And he's like, I don't work with those people. He's like, I only work with the people who have a sustained business. They have the base offer, like you said, they have that consistent income coming in. Maybe they have their recurring revenue. They've got certainty in their business, and they're looking to take it to that next level and really brand themselves as the expert, which I want to talk to you about here in a few minutes. But I always like to ask, especially with people like us we're service-based businesses. Like, this is what we do. Like, how did you get into this world and become a business growth strategist? Like, what did that journey look like for you?
Oh, the journey. It's interesting. It's not like it's so funny because I call it, it's not like your Hallmark storybook story, really, truly it was, we moved from upstate New York, up by you. We were up in Syracuse, and we moved down to Florida 8 years ago. And what was a really impressive resume in New York was not impressive at all in this area. I live in this area is very hospitality and retail based. And I came from manufacturing world, operations, business development. That's just not the way it was here in Florida. And so after having multiple jobs and just really just feeling like this is not what I signed up for, this is not what I worked so hard for in my career. And I just decided, like, I'm not going to do this. I am not going to let all of my knowledge, skills, and expertise go to waste simply because, like, Florida just doesn't necessarily need it or appreciate it. And so I started networking, and I just started talking to business owners, and I was just constantly giving them this, it was the days of let's meet for coffee, which ended up turning into all of these pick my brain sessions, which finally I was like, why am I not getting paid for this? And so I just started then charging for it. It was like slowly, and it just kind of evolved from there. But I never really set out to be a coach or consultant. That wasn't like my goal. I didn't know that this was going to be my path that I'd be on. I always knew that I had an entrepreneurial heart and spirit, and I believe firmly that there's a million ways to make money in this world, and I'm going to find every single one of them, and I'll try them and let you know whether or not they work. But I didn't really know that this is what I was going to do. But as it's evolved, I mean, now I know for a fact this is what I was meant to do. But honestly, had we not moved from New York to Florida, would I be here? Probably not.
Yeah. Beautiful place, though. Very beautiful. Yeah. Upstate New York's beautiful too, but just
in the summer.
Yeah.
The summer and the fall.
Exactly. So you started, and it happened in a way by accident because of people picking your brain, you realizing, hey, there's a market for this. I want to get paid to do this. How long did it take you? You must have started to notice some common themes from people, like common struggles, places where people were finding challenges. I guess kind of a two-part question here. which is, what were those common struggles that made you realize people really need help with these specific things? And when did you then come across your own framework of the route to getting fully booked?
Two things. Well, obviously time and money are always the biggest factors, right? But client acquisition, like where's the next client? How do I market myself? Like client lead generation, whatever you call it. I mean, I think there's a million buzzwords for it, but getting people in the door to do business with you is number one. And number two is pricing and packaging, and getting known in as who you are and what you do. And I think a lot of people underprice themselves. I think they undervalue themselves. I think they tend to go with the market or industry norm. And so they just kind of follow this path. And it's a lot of times undervaluing themselves. It's undervaluing the service that they bring to the table. And so for me, it's always like trying to find that one little piece of uniqueness that they do differently, because everybody's got something that they do slightly different that sets them either apart or above, or it's not even like, it doesn't make them better. It just makes them different. Right. And that's the thing, is like being able to look at what exactly is it that you bring to the table that differently, and leaning into that, and then pricing and packaging, and getting away from the time per dollar model to more of a value-based or package-based model. Like what you said, a 6-figure offer that's a 3-month. It's not like, you're not putting out a 6-month, I don't know your package, but I guarantee it's not like a 6-figure offer that says, I'm going to give you 40 hours per week. You know what I mean?
No
It's
way.
based on sessions. It's based on results. It's a value-based, here's what I'm going to give you. Here's what you can expect in return. And so being able to create and get people out of that time per dollar trade and into more of a value-based packaging system, that is where I find most people struggle, and what is really allows them to grow. And so that's where it was just this constant state of steps of like, and that's where the route came in, reflect, organize, time. Because again, where are you spending your time? Are these goals even realistic? Like, where did they come from? Again, most people just kind of follow the trends of what they think. And then you look at it and it's like, that's not even physically possible for you to hit that goal. So organization of your data is huge. And then up leveling, which is the packaging and positioning, target market, defining that target market. Because there's the other thing that I really see people struggle with is the paying client versus dream client. And it doesn't mean paying clients are bad clients, but they're not ideal clients. It's the ones that come showing up ready with a credit card, but they might not be exactly who we want to work with. And so making that shift of figuring out, I do it a little bit backwards. A lot of coaches and consultants will tell you to define your target market, No, I always say, let's define your services and what you bring to what you're willing to offer, and then find the clients that are looking for that.
Wow.
Because that's what to me creates a dream client. Here's who I am, here's what I do, and here's how you can work with me. You either fit the mold or you don't. And if you don't fit the mold, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean we're a bad fit. It just means this is not how I best serve. And so you're not a dream client for me, and I'm not a dream coach for you. Right. Yeah. So go find somebody else that will do that. And when you can get very clear on exactly what you're willing to offer and what you're not willing to offer, that's when you get the difference between somebody showing up with a credit card to you being able to basically also counter interview and say, you know what, I'm sorry, but this is how I work, and I don't know if this is a good fit for you.
Yes. Okay. So I love all of that. And we're going to dive into several of those aspects. But first, so the route is reflect, organize, up leveling, target market. And what's
Execute.
the E? Execute. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It's just from the work that I've done with other speakers, coaches, and because I work with some, that's not my target market, but it just happens by default. Like what you said, they ask questions, turns into a client. That's the biggest thing that I noticed, that people are just leaving off the table. They maybe have the package, they know who they want to help, but they're not executing. And some of them are staying busy, like they're posting every day, they look successful, they've got the likes, they've got the engagement, but they don't have the clients because they're focusing completely on inbound. They're focusing completely on, when they message me, then I'll start the conversation. I don't want to be a salesperson. I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to go out there and get people. But that is really and this might be a false belief of mine, but this is how I've done it. You have to go out there and find the clients and start the conversations, and the inbound will happen. But once you find the clients, then you have testimonials, then you have real posts of what you're doing. And then your future clients can say, oh, this is what Joe actually does, because they see pictures and posts of him doing it, not just pictures and posts of him talking about doing it. So I want to dive into all of those, but you said something really important a few minutes ago, which is uniqueness and helping people find that uniqueness. Because I guarantee you work with a lot of coaches who identify themselves as, I'm a life coach, I'm a relationship coach, maybe other business coaches, right? Like, how do you help people who are very much in a world with so many other people doing what they're doing to find their uniqueness? Like, can you give me an example of maybe someone you worked with and the uniqueness you helped them to define?
Yeah, so most recent, this only happened last week. It's not a coach, he's a personal trainer. Actually, they own their own gym here locally. But one of the things is they sell personal training packages, and they followed industry standard. Everybody else in the area, this is what they're charging, so this is what we do. It's half hour, 12, 60-minute sessions. Okay, great. That's all well and good, and that's fine. But as I was talking to him and his wife, they both run the business together, he was telling me, she was like, well, he spends a lot more time with his clients. He does the foam rolling, he does all this. And he's like, well, I focus on corrective exercise. And he's like, he spewed out this like 20-minute long just dialogue of all the things that he does. He is very advancedly trained in this corrective tissue exercise. Like, it's really deep dive, advanced corrective exercise, which is not just training. It's actually like retraining your muscles after an injury or different things. And I looked at him and I was like, why are you selling that as personal training? That's not personal training. Like, that is right there. Like, that's what's making you different. That's what's keeping you stuck. That's what's keeping you in this time per dollar trade. Like, you need to package that up, because that is a completely different service than any other personal trainer. You're not going to walk into LA Fitness or Planet Fitness or any of these other gyms and get somebody that is trained in this highly skilled corrective. So lean into that, right? So something of that sort. I had another copywriter, for example, who she can write copy. I mean, copywriters, some of them focus on long form blogs, some of them focus on short form or web copy or sales copy or funnel copy or all these different things. Well, I had a client who is really, really, really good at social copy. And there's a lot of copywriters out there that won't write social copy. They do not like it. And she loves it. And so I told her, lean into that, right? Because you are one of very few that are willing to write social copy on a retainer style basis. So again, leaning into that. So she's got a roster full of retainer clients with social copy and a wait list waiting for a spot to open up, because there's very few other copywriters. So it's finding that piece of what you're willing to do or how you do it that is slightly different, and then kind of leaning with that. It doesn't mean that you can't offer, like for the trainer, it doesn't mean that he can't offer just general personal training, where if you come in and you want to build muscle, you can do that. But lean into what is really where you're going to make your most money. And then, oh, by the way, I offer all these other services. It could be a framework, like mine is a route framework, like, okay, this is the process. For other clients, it's a specific software. I had a client who was really, really good, and she only liked working with one specific software. Okay, so there's your uniqueness. Like, you lean into the fact that you only work in this software and you've mastered it. We used to call her the ClickUp queen. She was a ClickUp person. You know what I mean? So I was like, lean into that, right? You can do all these others. She could do Dubsado. She could do all of these things, but lean into that. And so another client that worked really, really well with automation. So it's like finding these little pieces. And a lot of times this uniqueness is not like some big box, like, oh my God, you got to have a signature offer and this big, trademarked framework or anything. It could be something so small that you do. And most of the time we can't pull it out of ourselves, right? Like, we can't look at it and be like, well, wait a second. That's not what the rest of the industry is doing. You're the only one I know doing that. Lean into that. And so even just having a conversation with somebody to help you pull out what is different, or asking your clients what exactly, especially if they've worked with multiple coaches or copy, whatever it is, what exactly is it that drew you to me? Your clients are going to most of the time give you that little piece of uniqueness of what you're doing differently that somebody else isn't.
I really like that for many reasons, but also because it's a lot of people focus on niching down and they focus on first determining exactly who it is they want to help. I only work with, like, from a personal training standpoint, I only work with business people who are in their 40s who are also parents of 3 children. One of them is 4.
Yeah,
Like these
exactly.
very specific things. But I like what you just said because that takes the pressure off of knowing exactly who it is you help, but instead knowing exactly how it is that you help people to get a specific result based on specialty and based on something that, like what you said, we might not even look at ourselves the way that you would notice, as an example, that this guy is really good at corrective exercises and helping people correct their bodies versus just personal training. But we each have a story and experiences and a specialty in some area that we can, like you said, lean more into and market more to this specific thing rather than marketing for a specific person. Or do you think that's important too? Because I know I found it interesting how target market is the fourth step, when a lot of people say you should know who your target market is first and foremost. Do you think that understanding and niching down your target market is as important as knowing your specialty and having your package, or is it farther down the line? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think too many people get too wrapped up in niching. And I think a lot of times your offer defines your niche, right? Again, so right now, my package, if I'm going to use myself as an example, is an 8-week package and it's my route framework. You have to have data, right? You can't, there's step 2 is analyzing the data. And step 1 is reflection, right? Like you've got to come with some level of data. We've got to be able to look at what is working, what you've previously done, all of these things. And so I can define my target client based on, okay, you've been in business multiple years. You know what you love. You've been doing this. You've got a roster full of clients. You know you could be doing more. You've got bigger ideas. You know you want to get out of the time for dollar trade, right? Like, because now I know that my package is going to serve you and get you the results that you're desiring. And because I can define that. If I said that I work with women in their 30s, or 30 to 50, that business owners, okay, great. Well, yes, I can help startups and I can do that, and I do have a package that kind of helps develop ideas, but my goal is to get people fully booked. I can't get you fully booked if we don't have anything to work with, right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard because getting fully booked takes time, and you've got to understand what works and what doesn't work, and without that, I can't get you there. So my package is promising fully booked. I can't get you there if you don't come to me with data. So I don't care what your demographics are. I don't really care. If you come with data, if you are a business owner and you want to get fully booked, then that makes you an ideal client for me, right? Like, it doesn't matter. The demographics don't matter. What industry you serve doesn't matter. I mean, there's certain industries that I don't like. And I do think that there's a time and a place for demographics. I do think there's a time and a place for niching down. A couple people in my mastermind community are very niche. Like, one only works with attorneys. But again, she didn't go into her business saying, I'm only going to work with attorneys. She went in with a package. Here's what it does. She attracted a few attorneys, got great results, decided to niche into that because she found that attorneys got the best results with her program. But it doesn't mean that other people aren't. It doesn't mean that she's not getting referrals of other people. It's just, from a marketing standpoint, it was easier for her to niche into the attorney owner space. So I just think when you can look at your packages and say, like, for example, with the corrective exercise, now if we put a package together that is 100 focused on his corrective exercise and how it's going to help with injuries and what the flexibility looks like and how the muscles, now we can market to a client that has had an injury, that has had a poor experience with a personal trainer because they are re-injuring an injury or something. Like, you can use that to then define your client and attract them in or repel them out, right? Like if you're looking for just somebody that's going to throw, dumbbells at you and say, go do it. That's not me. I'm going to put you know what I mean? If you don't want to, so you can really look at it. So when you can define your offer and the results that you want to provide, because remember, you're the expert, you know what results you can provide. I know I can't provide results in less than 8 weeks. So I don't want a client. I had a client come to me the other day and say, can I do a one-off session with you? I stopped doing them because I know that that's not going to get you the results that you're desiring.
Yeah.
So it allows you to repel people or say no and speak very clearly. Here's what you're asking me to do. Here's how I know I can help you do it. You're either in or you're out.
And that comes from such a place of power too, because there is, especially when you start doing that and you start saying no when it doesn't fit your framework or your process, there's that voice in your head that's like, should I have told them no? Like, should I have taken that client? I could use the money right now, or it would be right? Exactly. There's a big difference though between doing that, the one-off sessions, and the hourly rates. Like as a personal trainer, maybe you charge $100 a session or whatever it is. There's a big difference between that and charging for a specific result, because I've seen personal trainers who went from charging $50 a session with a client to charging $3,000 to $5,000 for a 2-month package, a 3-month package, where they're putting in much less time and much less work into working with this client, yet they're still getting them a specific result because they did exactly what you said. They leaned into a specialty, they created a framework, they created a process, and they started selling the result rather than selling the process. Like a lot of life coaches are like, I'm going to help you with this, I'm going to help you with that, I'm going to help you with this. But what if instead you were like, I'm going to help you to be more confident so that when you go into a business meeting, you're able to speak your mind, you're able to deliver this important presentation coming up, you're able to get your body into this specific shape that you want, feel this specific way about yourself. Some things are more tangible than others, but I can guarantee that when you're leading people through your framework, when it gets to the point now of client acquisition, you have people guaranteed who say to you, Michelle, I'm just not a salesperson. Like, I don't know how to sell. I don't know that process. I don't want to be salesy. Like, what do you say to the clients that work with you who say, I'm not a salesperson? Like, how can I go about this from a non-salesy way?
To me, it's shifting from sales to education, right? Like it's your job as an expert to educate your audience or to educate your target market or the people, your prospects, the people that are watching you, and educate them as to why this is what they need, or educate them as to why and how, right? Because a lot of times, so I did this with a client the other day who had a great discovery call. It was an inbound lead. And then they said, well, I'm not sure if I need you or a copywriter first. She was a branding expert. And I said, this is not about being a hard salesperson at this point. You know for a fact that the work she's going to do with you to nail down brand messaging and positioning is going to make her copy better. So this isn't about the hard sale about this is, I'm the right person. I'm this. It's educating her on why there's steps in the process. Here's why working with me makes more sense than working with a copywriter, because copywriters need voice. They need to understand your position in your market, blah, blah, blah. So being able to just shift it from, well, no, I'm the right person, you need branding, and really not, instead of focusing on branding, it's educating. Because remember, if your clients already knew or your audience already knew everything about that, they would be doing it themselves. They're coming to you because you're the expert. So educate them on why. Like, even this gym client, he's like, I just want to create new packages. And I keep having to educate him and say, we will get there, but I have to understand where you're at before we can just create new packages. Because there's no point in creating packages if you don't have the capacity to sell them.
Yeah.
You have no time. You have no time even. So let's figure out where you're spending your time right now. Then we'll move into that. It's educating. Again, they only have their issue is right here in front of them. That's as far as they can see. So it's your job to educate them on, yes, I'm going to get you here, but we're going to work on all of these other things too. And it is sales, but sales is not negative. Sales is, I just put a podcast up too, I think recently about, stop being so afraid of it. Like, what is so hard about the word no? Like, if it's not a good fit, say no. No is not near as scary of a word as we have made it, or we have put the pressure around it. But sales is business. I mean, when
Mm-hmm.
you walk everywhere you go, even when you go through the drive-through line at Dunkin', the first thing they ask you is, "Hi, welcome to Dunkin' Donuts. Would you like to try our blah blah blah, whatever their new thing is?" Right? That's sales, right?
Yeah.
But they're getting paid to do it because it's their job. They have to do it, so it's a job, and they get paid to ask you that question. But all of a sudden, you become a business owner, and it's like sleazy. You don't walk through the drive-through. You know what I mean? You're not, as a consumer, going through the drive-through line getting pissed off because the person at Dunkin' asked you if you wanted to try their new pumpkin cold brew.
Yeah.
That's their job, and you expect that. Well, you as a business owner, sales is your job. It's your job to ask the client, "Can I interest you in pumpkin cold brew today?" Like, shift your mindset about it, because you cannot get fully booked if you are not willing to have the conversations, whether you call them sales conversations, educations, questions. I don't care what you call it. Put your put some kind of thought process around it that you can wrap your mind around it, because that is your job. Your
Yeah.
job as a business owner is to sell yourself and your services.
I think one of the funniest things is when you go through the drive-through and it starts off in that cheery, like, female voice, and it's like, "Would you like to try a mocha schmocha frappe today?" And you're like, "No, thank you." And then from the other end, you hear, "Okay, what can I get you?" It's like,
Exactly.
okay, like they've even automated like much of that process now. So like
Exactly.
it's just funny. It made me think of that when you said it. But it's so true. It's that mindset shift from, we often at the beginning especially think that when we're selling, we're getting something from the other person, or they're doing us a favor by signing up with us for our program or whatever it is we're selling. Like, no, you are providing a service that's going to help people to bring their life or their business or whatever it is to the next level. Like, it's a privilege that they get to work with you. And I love how you said it's that shift from sales to educating them on the two things that you said: why you need this and how we're going to get this specific result for you. Because it's one thing to say, "I'm going to help you get your body into shape," or "I'm going to help you to set up your retirement fund," or whatever. It's another thing to say, "We're going to do that by following this specific framework," because that then tells them, one, you've got your shit together, you've got the data, you know how you're going to get them that specific result, like what you said. And it's service. I mean,
Mhm.
Sarah Phillips, who I've had on the show several times now, she lives by the phrase that selling is service. So the more opportunity you get to describe your process or service to someone, that's you serving other people. And if you hear no, great, you move on to the next. But usually you don't even hear no. Usually it's like, "Not right now." Right? I've had a lot
Mhm.
of clients, especially corporate, who says, "We don't need this right now, but next year we might pursue this." And now I've been in business long enough to where I follow up with them after a year,
Oh,
and they're like, "Yeah, Brandon, we'll bring you in. Let's do it. We're ready now." So I think
mhm.
that's why it's important to, I'm sure, organize the O in route has something to do with having a CRM, having a system that you're putting your leads in. So, if they say not right now, to follow up with them when they ask you to. But I'm curious to know, and now we're moving kind of into the strategy piece of things to wrap this up.
Mhm.
What are your favorite strategies right now? Like, do you have a specific client acquisition strategy that works for you? You're staying in this lane right now because it works and it gets results. Like, what are your favorite client acquisition methods right now?
My favorite and be all end all will always be, for like, whether you're online, I guess, online or not, is coffee chats. That is 100% my favorite. Utilizing the DMs, having real conversations, relationship marketing, 100% works. Content marketing, I always tell everybody, like, your relationship marketing system, you've got to start the conversation, you've got to continue the conversation, you've got to amplify the conversation. So you can start the conversation just by simply sending a quick DM. So many people are afraid to get into the DMs, but I'm telling you, I would say 95% of my clients that I have gotten over the past 5 years, 6 years, almost 6 years in business, have all come from a DM that just says, "Hey, Brandon, this is so great to connect with you. Would love to learn more about what you do." And again, I don't go into those conversations. I don't go into that with the expectation of, I'm going to close this sale, right? Like sometimes I had somebody come to me 4 years after I sent their original message, but I've started the conversation. I continue the conversation, whether that's by commenting on their stuff, whether that's, following up with them, having, reaching back out to them in the DMs, and again, amplify. To me, that's where your content comes in. Your content amplifies the conversations that you've already had, because now people know what you do. You've had a conversation with them. They're far more likely to interact with your content and really understand what you do. So I'm a huge fan of coffee chats, networking, in person, just conversation, connecting, getting out behind the keyboard. That's number one. But as far as other acquisitions, I would say workshops or master classes still very highly, they convert very, very well. Again, any kind of training where you can train your audience and really just, again, get out from behind the keyboard and let people see you for who you are and the expert that you are. Teach people something, share with them why they need you. Again, we're not in the business of convincing. I'm not in the business of convincing people that they need a coach. I'm in the business of convincing people that already know they need a coach, that I'm the coach for them, right? Like that's my job, is to convince you that I am the fit for you, not why you need a coach, not why it helps, blah, blah, blah. We're not in that business. Stop trying to teach people why copywriting or insurance, why they need it. Find the people that know they already need insurance and tell them why you are the best fit. How you're going to do that is getting people like this, show up live, teach them something, let people see your personalities, let people in your personal brand. It's you, right? Like, let people see you for who you are and how you educate, because it's one thing to read it, it's another thing to see it and let people interact with you. So I do think workshops still work very, very well. Those are two usually of my go-tos, some type of, again, relationship building. I always lean into relationship marketing. Obviously there's a ton of other lead generation strategies that work. There's a guru out there that can prove it. And I think that's what's most important. But for me, one of the things that I always tell people is that's what you have to remember. There is a guru out there that can prove. There's Amy Porterfield that's going to tell you can do it through list building. There's Stu McLaren that's going to tell you can do it through memberships. There's a guru out there that has done all of them. What you have to understand is how you best show up. What's going to work for you? If you don't like writing emails, building a massive list isn't going to be your best lead generator, because if you don't stay in touch with them because you suck at writing emails and you hate it, there's only you're not going to convert from it, right? So you've got to lean into what you enjoy and where you bet and how you best show up, and find a lead generation strategy that will work with how you show up.
Oh my God, I love that. Guys, rewind 3 minutes and re-listen to that over and over and over. And you're absolutely right. I know my business partner, Brian Rollo, and I mentioned this several times, he primarily finds his new clients from his email list. And he's not writing a new email every single day. Like, he's doing one email a week that he calls the leadership newsletter. That's the Lead the Way newsletter. That's my bad. Lead the Way newsletter, where he literally finds most of his clients from that. He'll send out an email, they'll reply to it, they'll have a conversation. But it's very important, guys, that you realize Michelle practices what she preaches. Like, go follow her on LinkedIn right now. The link is in the description to check out her LinkedIn profile. Connect with her there, start a conversation. But you'll notice that I think you just had your 100th coffee chat this year, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
so
that's
far, yeah,
exactly. And that's how we met. We met virtually from a coffee chat, but it started in the DMs, right? And we quickly moved it to a conversation, which has led us here. And now there will be people who comment on this or engage with this, and you look at it and you're like, hey, maybe I could help this person. And then you'll be in their DMs, not to say, hey, I've got this great program for you, but it'll say, hey, I'd like to learn more about what you do. And then you do that. You learn about them. And then they say something like, yeah, I'm just having trouble in this one specific area. And you're not like, I can help you, but you're like, hey, just not for nothing, I have this program. I'm not sure if this is for you, but it can actually help you in that exact area that you want help with. It's called the route framework. And then they're like, wow, that sounds really cool. I want to do that, or not right now, Michelle. And then you say, no problem. Great meeting you. Then they see your content for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then they're like, you know what? I want to work with Michelle. I want to know what this looks like when we work together. And then you have that conversation, and that's a new client. And you've built your process to the point where, like what you said, you like to have 4 clients at a time. So you're not needing hundreds of people funneling through this process. Like, you've designed what you want, and you've designed your plan in a way where you can have 4 people, and that's supporting the lifestyle that you want to live. So it all goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I do live that. I mean, obviously, I've had conversations and I look at it and so many people will tell me like, oh my God, it's such a waste of time. I don't find having a conversation ever to be a waste of time. I mean, I can't say ever. I have had a couple calls where I'm like, oh, okay, that wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. But you know what? You gain something. You gain something from every single conversation, even if it's oh my God, I never want to work with that type of person, or something of that sort. There's content that comes out of it. I mean, 90% of the time you're having these conversations. So yeah, I just go into it with the conversation. I'm going to gain something. I'm going to gain a piece of content. I'm going to gain a friendship, an opportunity. I went into a conversation last week with the expectation of learning about a networking group that he had, and ended up getting like a million pointers on how to make my podcast better, an invite to his in-person mastermind in Texas that I'm going to. Like, cool. You just don't know. Like, that wasn't at all why I scheduled the call with him. It was through an introduction, same thing. Like, hey, I think you guys would really hit it off. You guys think a lot alike. And now look at what it brought me. It brought me an opportunity that is just incredible. So you have to always understand that you're going to gain something, but really it's about leaning into what you feel most comfortable with. If you show up live, if you love to write emails, if you've figured that out, whatever it is. But again, it's execution, consistency, and visibility. Just like your partner. I mean, he's getting visible. Every single week he's in his client's inbox. Every week. It's not like he gets in their inbox once every 3 months and turns all of his clients from his email list, right? Like, consistency and visibility are what is going to gain you, and are going to be your biggest lead generators.
You're so right. We've covered a lot in this conversation, from knowing what your specialty is, your uniqueness, to generating leads, to the mindset piece of selling when you're not a salesperson. Like, we covered a lot, and there's guaranteed to be one person who's like, I want to work with Michelle. I want to know what it looks like to join her route to fully booked program. So what can people expect when they have a conversation with you about even joining the program, and if it's the right fit for them?
Yeah, it would just be a general conversation, just a casual conversation. Tell me where you're at. What are you trying to do? What's your goal? Where are you stuck? Like, what's keeping you from getting to this point on your own? And then looking at whether or not we feel, here's how I can help. Here's some of my suggestions. Here's the direction I would potentially take it, depending. And then looking at whether or not it's a good fit. It is application only, but it's just a series of questions. And the reason is it's not application only because I think I'm some be all end all, the best thing in the world. It's application in the sense of, I want to understand where you're at to make sure that I am a good fit for you. And so it's just a series of questions. Again, just understanding kind of where you're at headspace wise and from a business perspective. And then it's an 8-week process, and we go through, there's 5 steps in the framework. The reason for 8 weeks is sometimes it takes a week in between. Ideally we would go through 5 weeks, bang through, but sometimes it takes a couple weeks, and I don't ever want to rush it, because there is 0 point in going through something rushed just to be like at the end. And the other thing is that usually the first time around, there's some level of tweaking that needs to happen. And so when you get to E and you execute, it's like, oh, wait a second, Michelle, we didn't think of this. There's always a what if that you can't think of until you execute. And so that's where those extra weeks come in. But again, I never ever promise people that in 8 weeks they're going to be fully booked. It's not that. You're going to have a framework and a strategy to get you fully booked, with the intention that if we still need to work together, I call it GPS in your back pocket. It's like a rapid fire. So like, as those questions keep coming up and you need those tweaks, and hey, how would you handle this? Then there's a retainer option. And so the 8 weeks is just to get you the framework, to get you the strategy, to get you everything. and you can take and run with it, or I can continue to help you execute it.
That's awesome. So guys, if you are someone who you have some data, you know how you want to help people, but you're not just quite sure how to package that, you're not sure how to prospect for new clients, how to make yourself visible, position yourself as the expert. If any of that is you, then you got to go check out the description, click the link, apply for Michelle's program, or follow Michelle on LinkedIn
Reach
or
out to me. Send me a DM. I'm not afraid of the DMs. Get in my DMs.
Start a conversation and have a coffee chat and see what it's all about.
Exactly.
Be a part of her process. See how she does it, because even that alone will help you in incorporating that into your own process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Super cool. I love it. Michelle, it was great to finally have you on the show. And
I know. Thank you
I'm
so
excited
much.
to have you back in the future here.
I appreciate it. It was my pleasure to be here. If anybody has any questions, please reach out again. And Brandon, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great talking with you.
Take care.
No matter what stage you're at, you've got something to take away from this conversation. Again, the route framework is reflect, organize, up-level, target market, and execute. But again, that process means nothing if you don't know the intricacies that go into each individual step. And you can discover those by following Michelle, starting a conversation with Michelle, and joining her 8-week program if it's a good fit for her and for you. So links are in the description to follow Michelle. I hope you took a ton away from this conversation. I hope you took away even one new insight or one new strategy or mindset shift that you're going to take and you're going to use in your life or your business. And if you did, all that we ask is you share this show with just one other person. You're the reason the show has grown the way it has over the past few years. And I'm grateful to you for being the best part of the Be Better team. Thanks so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.